Hello interwebs, welcome to Adamant IT. Today I'm going to be showing you the ThermalMaster P4 thermal camera. So thank you very much to ThermalMaster for sending in this review sample for me to take a look at. They've sent me a couple of their cameras in the past. I've been using the P2 for a long time and very recently upgraded to the P3, which they also sent me. So big fan of their products. I use them in my repair work involving thermal cameras for short detection and stuff like that. So what's different with the P4? Because it's strikingly similar to the P3 and has followed along fairly quickly afterwards as well. Well, the main difference is this one has the dual vision technology. And what that means is that it has two forward-facing lenses, an infrared lens and a visible light lens. And this allows it to do a dual vision image where it has a visible light outline of what you're looking at with the infrared view overlaid over the top of it. So this is similar to the hybrid view that other manufacturers of thermal cameras use. And the huge advantage of it is that it gives you a much more clarity and detail in the object that you're looking at. Because obviously when you're looking at just the infrared vision, especially when there is not a huge delta in temperatures, sometimes you have to use a little bit of abstract thinking to figure out what you're actually looking at. The high resolution of modern thermal cameras is helping a lot with this, but on the earlier ones, it makes low resolution cameras very difficult to use. So the resolution of this camera, like with the P3, is 256 by 192. They have their X3 IR resolution, which bumps that up to 512 by 384. But make no mistake, this is upscaling. That does not add any information. It will make the image look a little bit cleaner by the time you've blown it up to the size of your phone screen or onto a computer monitor. But remember, that upscaling does not add any more detail that wasn't already there. So while a lot of shops and stuff will throw around that 512 by 384 number, I will be referring to this as a 256 by 192 sensor camera, which is fine. That is the current meta for this class of product. So the resolution is great. The cheaper cameras are lower than this one, so you get a good clean image out of this sensor, as we've seen from the P3 and the P2. Around the rest of the box, not super exciting, much the same as what we saw with the P3. So let's open it up and have a look. And inside the box, just like with the P3, we've got very much the same packaging as well. I've got the little cardboard box of some paperwork here. There's a manual in a million billion languages and stuff like that. And also we get another little box here where it comes with a cable. And this is a Type-C extension cable. And the reason for that is that this is designed to plug into the bottom of a phone, but you can use it on a computer as well. And so with this cable, you've got a little extension that allows you to plug it into the back of a computer or a laptop. And that little converter there will make it Type A as well if you need it. So it comes with a very handy cable, which I shall put back in the box for safekeeping. And then the camera itself comes in this nice little carry case. So this is a nice hard-wearing little zip case that has got some pretty good protection. So that'll survive a fall down a flight of stairs, and that'll also survive having something put on top of it. So it's a pretty rugged case. I like this a lot. And then there is our camera itself. So you can see that it looks very similar to the P3 in its presentation, but the lens, completely different kettle of fish there. So on this lens, we've got the visible light sensor there, and then the infrared sensor there. And this ring here doesn't do anything. Unlike the P3, which has the focusing ring, this guy is a fixed lens camera. And that is where the interesting comparisons between these two products are going to come into play. So I'm going to tell you more about that in a moment, but first let's roll the intro and then we'll plug this thing in and I'll show you what it can do. So the ThermalMaster consumer cameras are accessed through the TempMaster app that you can download for Android or iOS. And I'm going to plug in the P4 just to the bottom of my phone here. This is a Pixel 6, and after a few moments that will connect and we'll get a calibrated view. There we go. And right away you'll see that we have what appears to be a pretty detailed picture of this laptop motherboard that I've got under the camera here. And this kind of detail is not what you'd expect to see from a small thermal camera like this, where we've got very distinct outlines of all the components and the CPU there. So let's quickly swap this over to a P3 just so you can actually see the comparison shot. So now with the P3 we're seeing just purely infrared only, and we do still have some distinctive lines where we've got reflections and stuff like that, but you'll notice that all of the detail in the flatter area is now all gone. So that's the big advantage of the dual vision mode that we get from the P4. So let me just switch back to that now and we'll explore it further. And so here's the dual vision mode again, and as you can see we're seeing all those little tiny component outlines. So again, the resolution isn't different, but because we've got that visible light outline on things, it's a lot easier to actually zone in on places we want to look at. So if I go to the dual vision options here, and we've got distance mode where we can calibrate the convergence. So if I move that, you'll see that the convergence of the two views move apart. And in addition to the distance convergence, we've also got intensity where we can swap all the way down to pure infrared or throw in that overlay. So this is really good for seeing the difference here. As you can see, it looks kind of smudgy with just the infrared only, but as we bring in the dual vision mode, we get that outline so we can kind of see what we're looking at in more detail. So at this point, it's kind of easy to look at this and be like, wow, that's a straight upgrade from the P3, right? Well, there's a big problem with this, and that is going to depend on what you're using it for. The big problem is that for my use case, when I'm looking at a circuit board like this, the range that I'm actually kind of want to be at with this is here. And at this range, yeah, we can't really see anything at all. And that's because there's no macro on this at all. Once again, if I switch back to the P3, with the P3, I can turn that adjustment lens and get right down close again and get all of the detail back. And the P4 just literally can't do this. And if you need this kind of up-close detail, which I'll demonstrate in a moment, then the lack of macro lens on the P4 is going to be a deal breaker. So let's do a quick demonstration of what that's going to look like in my use case of circuit board repairs. But then I'm going to show you what the P4 is really good at in ways where the P3 is woefully inadequate for. So for demonstration, I've got this motherboard here wired up with a faulty capacitor on it, which is the absolute classic fault that you're going to be using a thermal camera to hunt for. So when I switch on my power supply, we're going to be putting 1 volt and 3 amps into these wires that go onto the main power rail of the motherboard. And the faulty capacitor on this motherboard is going to conduct that power from the main power rail to ground, causing the faulty capacitor to overheat and get hot. And so that's what we're going to be looking for with the Thermal Master camera. So starting with the P4 here, I'm going to just hold this here. I've got to put it at a slight angle just so it doesn't reflect my light, which is kind of annoying, but whatever. Hold on my phone so you guys can see what the camera is seeing. And I can check the alignment as well before we start, so I can move this around until our dual vision is aligned. And also I can just remember I can change this intensity as I need it as well. Right, let's turn on the power supply and see what lights up. There we go, and we've got a fairly noticeable dot that's just appeared down here. So now we can see we've got a flare up here, which is what I'm looking for. However, as I move closer, you can see that we lose that definition, and I can adjust the alignment a little bit, but the problem is that we just can't focus that close. Now, this does get me close enough to make a pretty accurate guess as to where our problem will be down here. But what I'll do now is from a distance, you can see that we've got a good acquisition, But if I switch back to the P3, you'll see why the P4 isn't quite suited for this. Now, by comparison, the P3, we lose that dual vision. However, we can see our flare up, and if I move in closer here, now at point blank range, I can just turn that focus dial and everything comes into sharp focus. And we can see exactly which component it is that I need to remove from the board. So when I demonstrate it in this way, it's easy to look at the P4 and go, well, this isn't really suited for repair. But that depends on what kind of repair you're trying to do. So let's go and do some exploring with some more favorable conditions for the P4 and show you how the P4 will give us a much better picture where the P3 would completely fall over. So let's look at some bigger things than a circuit board. Here's a laptop hard drive in a USB enclosure. With the P3, we can see a hotspot on the USB bridge, but the drive itself is a fairly uniform block, and it's only the reflective parts that reveal that the drive is even exposed at all. By comparison, with the P4's dual vision, we can now see the details. This doesn't tell us more about temperature, but it makes it easier to see what we're actually looking at. Objects on the surrounding desk are now visible too, so random glints and reflections have context to them. Here's a panning shot of the electrical panel in my shop. The P3 does show warm areas and would reveal the flare-up of a bad contact that's getting hot, but a lot of the wires here are very hard to see or track at all. However, with dual vision, we get that highlighted outline around everything, as well as the finer details of displays and dials on the equipment itself. So if we see a heat signature out of place, we can instantly see what it actually is, instead of needing to use context clues to find a point of reference. The inside of a PC is always just cool to look at under infrared. There's a lot of heat sources, so you get a pretty clear picture from infrared alone. However, with the dual vision, we add in the lines that do get lost. In this shot, I'm sliding the mix slider up and down, so you can see the dual mode fading in and out. So from that comparison, I hope you can see the strengths and weaknesses of the P4 versus the P3 and the different situations that you might use either camera in. I believe the P4 is very suited for people who are looking at larger objects and such like, which is a bit outside of my wheelhouse, but I can definitely understand where this would be incredibly valuable. So in terms of cost prices, the recommended retail on the P4 comes in at £360. However, it would not surprise me if you find it on sale at other places like AliExpress now and then. This is just the current Amazon price. By comparison, the P3 is available at £280 recommended retail on Amazon right now. So this makes the P4 a fairly more expensive option as well. But again, if that dual vision is what you need for your use case, then that is going to be worth its weight. The macro lens that I'm showing off as an advantage for the P3 and the P2 as well, this is only useful if you're looking at stuff from 2 inches away. As soon as you are more than a handspan away from a device, the macro lens is no use to you whatsoever. So in which case, the P4 is going to give you much more diversity in what you can look at and how you can look at it. However, if you're an electrician looking at a wiring panel, if you are a builder looking for drafts around doors and windows, if you're a plumber looking for a leaky hot water pipe that is coming through somewhere around the insulation, this guy is going to give you that dual vision that makes it much easier to see through the muddy noise that is just infrared only. So that's where the P4 is really going to come into its own. However, I leave the choice up to you. I think I stand by my review of the P3. These are both excellent cameras, and I think they both stand as a really useful lineup, demonstrating the different use cases for these cameras outside of just repairing circuit boards. So I hope that was very interesting to you guys. Thank you again to Thermal Master for sending in the P4 thermal camera, and there'll be links down below if you want more information about this guy. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye.